All right, so we've actually made some massive progress in our experience here in this world, especially today, because we can see things as they really are. We've, in a sense, activated the third eye, but on a totally different level, not looking for simply physical phenomena to be as a confirmation of that, but the simple vibration of clarity. And the clearness from this conversation should surely be is us becoming adept or adult at realizing what the language's use is, realizing how it's not that great of a tool to use to express yourself, to not abandon it entirely, but also to realize when you may have been doing too much of it, and that your time could be better spent in creating something that is multifaceted, that gives everyone a maybe that bitter medicine that works out for them and allows them to cultivate themselves properly. So that's what we're talking about here. So I wanted to, again, finish off. So whoever does have any questions, you can go ahead and type that question into the chat box in all caps, and then I'll start looking there to answer that. But I'll also go on and talk about really the future of what I would say today is religion. And this is because overall, when we really think about our expansion, we realize that the greatest work that has to still be done, or like a good friend of mine says, what we get to do, is a prism break. A prism break. Prismbreak. Because if you take a cube and then you cut it in half, you get a triangle. Just like if you take a circle and you cut it in half, you get a D, right? So then you can say that the D is a triangle, okay? And the D, of course, is the delta, which is also the triangle. So the triangle just by itself, what I'm saying, is a symbol of the division. And what we have the opportunity to do is a prism break. And I'm going to tell you that in this, there's somewhat of a quasi-war going on, if you may. Like everyone understands the word worship and the conflict and all this, and then sometimes we can imagine wanting to be out of it, and even so much where we don't see that we're in it, and it's going to take more than just a thought to rid ourselves of it entirely. It's going to be putting an end to all wars. And to do that, what you would have to do is you would have to set your captives free. Meaning in every tense and every border that there is, and there's those that are caged in their own minds for whatever reason, you have to realize that there's a reason why people do what they do. Like even when you look at criminals in Russia or something, it's people that you're not even thinking about, people that you can't even feel, but yet claim empathy. But seeing cows in a cage, but not noticing that there's humans in cages, thousands of them. As they say, there's more black men now in prison than there were as slaves in 1850. But it's more. There's other countries. There's people being imprisoned. So what the prison break is about is giving these prisoners also an opportunity to realize that sovereignty and sustainability go together, and that the releasing of their energy and the clearance of whatever they're dealing with will actually be their release from any kind of prison, no matter what any kind of sentence may be that's given out by a lesser court. And so this is about real metamorphosis. I want people to take a look at, when they do get a chance, to look at this gentleman by the name of, and I'll put his name in here, because this is going to be some of the action that we're going to be getting into. I'm no dummy. I'm not going to be like Hugo, putting clocks together as fast as clocks are being broken on a treadmill. You would need to go, and you want to raise Kundalini, right? You want to raise the planet's Kundalini. You would need to do that from the depths. This means everyone emancipates, baby. Everyone goes into a massive state of consciousness and a greater level of perspective of who they are, which is everything. No one will be left behind. How could you call such things? and this is real talk, how could you cause such things? What kind of dynamics would you need to be dealing with to cause such phenomena? This is the question I will propose to any so-called master or great one. What kind of method would you propose to deal with the masses in their current tense? What has worked? And why has it failed? Okay? So these are the questions that, as a real person, like I'm going to ask myself. When you're being awake, you're just asking questions to yourself, and you're giving yourself the real answers. And then you go and find those answers with courage and will. Once you find those answers turn you inside out, literally. They give you a entire perspective of everything that's going on, because after all, you were in the lie, and then now there's a real truth. Some people think the Matrix thing is just a movie still. It's like there's certain symbolism in the reality. No, it's a real thing. Many of those components are more real than they are fake. So what happens here is that when you study the bodies, okay, and that's the geometries, right? But without straight lines. When you study the bodies, and that's through experience, you actually realize that it's vibration. That everything's about vibration, because if we can generate more energy, then there's more energy to go around, and you don't actually feel tired. You don't actually feel like there's something you cannot do because you have this lack of something. And the only something there could be is energy. So we introduce free energy for the body, okay, which is what's coming. It's going to change the dynamic. They kill people for this, okay? And the reason why they can't kill now is because we have other entities that are stationed, that if they even attempt to bring a sword, they judge and they will be judged, because that's how you create a non-battle field, right? This is what you see in the laboratory. You create a space, and then you choose what frequencies you allow in that space. Anything that tries to come into that space is repelled, and this leads you to a secret. I call it eating yourself. Now notice this. I'm going to give you a big key here. On your skin, this is what I was talking about. The skin was synonymous with the serpent. When the real wisdom was going around, they were saying that the skin was a serpent because it protected the rest of the body, and even the scale is left on the human being, and that's their nail. And that this actually is shiny, and that it gives off this radiance. And then it's directly tied into our aura, right? But the even deeper thing is that on the surface of the skin, there are hundreds of thousands of microorganisms. They are really there. And what they do is that every time an invasive organism or virus lands on your skin surface, and it happens all the time, they eat it up. They literally eat it up. And so this leads to a secret, too, about how these worlds work, because there's a quantum energetic thing going on with consumption, right? It's a big thing. And what you realize is that, what you realize is that eating yourself basically leads you to this point where, or that concept of eating yourself leads you to this point where you realize that you actually are cultivating things, and if you can get it cultivated properly, you can eat it from yourself. A good example of that is urine therapy. I mean, some people are still don't understand what that's all about, and some even tried it just crazy and went into it and then didn't realize what they need to do and how to get themselves prepared. But to bring this in a proper scope for you, if you drink the right water, okay, and then you eat the right things, because most of the minerals are not absorbed by the body, which is why you need some kind of enzymes and some type of probiotics to help you process that you actually do it yourself. That when your urine is proper, that it actually creates the probiotic or enzyme version of the element that you just put in. So then it needs to be reintroduced back into the body, because it just actually went through an alchemical process. Okay, when you drink something, it goes through an alchemical process and then it comes out. Is it gold? So that was real alchemy, okay? So that's one example of eating yourself. The other one is the one I just recently discovered about the hair. Now, I've known this for a long time, but about certain things about the hair, but there were some key pieces that were put together just recently, which is the reason why I'm kind of wearing the beard. I don't know. It may not be here forever, but I am rocking it now because I just went over a really awesome period, and I noticed that there was a greater level of preservation of that period within the last 2 weeks of growing this, because this is present. Because I've recognized how, when I removed this, how that particular period, because I'm really in control of my brain and what's there and what's not there, seems to get a lot more hazy, and I can't actually access it or remember it as well. So then I went and researched what hair is really made out of and found out hair is made out of protein. Then obviously I already am up on game that the DNA is basically just in the protein generation. Like it just keeps saying produce protein because it's the building blocks to everything. So then I started realizing that people that have good periods can actually save their hair in a sense from that period and begin to cultivate a little bit more with themselves as long as their hair, which is like a tree or a root itself growing, is nourished properly with some kind of oils and things that you will put on your skin and on your body. That stuff that we don't use anymore because notice what, let's say for instance the skin is a snake. It may be a boa, it may not be a cobra, okay? The skin is a snake. What are you feeding it, right? And so if you feed it all this stuff like tetromycin, blah, 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 which is all these salts, right? You're basically not only poisoning yourself, but you're also feeding your protection something that's going to really weaken it, right? And this is like, this is a big thing because it shows, and I'm getting back to what I was trying to remember, but it shows in deep levels how this skin thing and this protection is deeper than most people ever think, in that if they could nourish their skin better, and if they could nourish their hair better, and people have been talking about this for a long time, but this is so integral to expansion with your aura and allowing your aura to become resonant, but also it could be very disastrous for someone who's keeping their hair and keeping different things for prolonged periods of time, especially through periods of great sadness and periods of through great turmoil. Sometimes they call that a lock. Right? And then you lock or you braid that particular time and that moment in there. And so sometimes with everything, when you study energetics, you realize some people have a lot of stuff that they need to let go. I mean, they just have all this pent up baggage that they're carrying around. It's like the fool with the pack on the back. And they just need to let that go, really, and let it, go into something new. Because think about it, going into something new means even rearranging the room. You start working simple, right? You just rearrange the room. Then you start rearranging where you live. Then you start rearranging, and then this is how you make the physical movements. But trust me, I'm not also trying to delay people at their expansion, because this stuff can get complex when you don't know anything about it in the first place. So that's why we're really launching a major effort to bring not only certain things into the reality that help people with their energy, but also get the curriculum that's associated with this process in a way in which people can access that information in the stages that's necessary to actually get to gain what can fully be what could fully occur with this knowledge, especially with the experience. So really what open source spirituality is really about, it's going to be at secretenergy.com. There's actually a page there now that you can register. And what this is really about is this is about actually creating something to where people get a curriculum-based walk, and that's like we got the hard notes from the resistance, like how we started and what we thought about things at a certain point, and then how we completely evolved into a totally different state of consciousness to really then come full circle all the way back to self, realizing there was no other states of consciousness, and collapsing fear and all those different things. Those are compressed and deeply encoded and encrypted levels of knowledge and parts of what gets a person off of the path that they're stuck on. Meaning, to understand the way you walked into the forest is the easiest way to get out. And so what happens with a lot of this is that we have to realize where deprogramming comes in at. People are really award orientated. They want some kind of certificate, some kind of medal, some kind of declaration that they've actually gone into something different, right? And it's fine and dandy for a lot of the expanded culture to say, but that's the wrong way. And then, but it's an entirely different thing to say, okay, well, how can we fix that? And can we build a bridge to it? Because surely a bridge means someone's got to go back across, right? But the one who's going back across is going back with a mission. It's like when you watch the new X-Men. I barely even watched it because it was a bad copy on the internet. But if you understand the entire scope of the thing, it's just about going back into the past to prevent things that are going to happen in the future. And it seems like we want to do that so much, but the power has not been given because we're focusing on things that we will want to change that either would throw everything off the line about who we are now and thus make us start over again, or things that we already need to deal with and clear. So this means that you got to get into integral work with people to be able to release this kind of energy, or do you? And so this is what I started saying to myself, is that how many examples of perfection are actually here in the reality, meaning things that are still remaining that bear the semblance of something that is actually still in its perfected state. And fortunately, I was able to find many things still in their pristine state that it wasn't difficult to acquire. And I started realizing that to show an individual perfection at times, or what the perfection that they could be, you need to somehow create something that sends out that energy and sends out that signature. Because everything that we're dealing with in reality, what I'm telling you, is just is sometimes the best that a person could do at showing us who we really are. And so now with what's available and now with what we know, and that's why this is a very special time. With the clarity of this kind of knowledge, not only spiritually and realizing who we are, then we get a chance to look at ourselves again and realize the beauty of the entire thing. And then we also get a chance to not just look at it and criticize it, but also enhance it from a clear state of mind and a clear state of being of how it's going to affect everyone, us being collectively involved in the decision. It's not hard to make a choice that everyone is actually going to benefit from. Like, that's, you see what I mean? I don't want to get on the podium here and start giving people this self-help and motivate yourself speech, but I think that's been what's been going on for years, and a lot of people have achieved that, but there's some people who haven't. And what I noticed is that that's where I will find myself still in all of this is, as I was mentioning earlier, I said all that to say this. If you send a curriculum, and let me get this up. If you send a curriculum into the areas that people are trapped in the prisms, and you vibrate them, you teach them how to unlock themselves, then you will have no issue dealing with what you're calling the malevolent forces that they say are dead but dreaming. Because all of the state of consciousness, when we go to sleep, wherever these people are in the world, they all go into the same grid. And some of the things that are happening in those dreams that people are thinking are real is because some of those consciousness are like, they need to get out, and so they're getting out anyway. The person who's locked up's mind is more on the astral plane than it is here. It's still as that character that they are there. So the more frustrated they get over there, because there's also a lack of access to certain things. So and access to things or frequencies that people can be brought down to. Meaning, if you pull yourself down very low into low frequencies, you're in the netherworld. And what the netherworld is what's forgotten. What's forgotten is the poor, the prisoners, really all the P's, why the popes are down there preying on them, okay? So what happens is that when you really think about what this is about, when someone would shine a shield like a pentagram, is what they were really saying is that the mother, okay, like the mother Venus, who's tracing out a pentagram in the sky, but with a bow. Notice the procession is a bow. These are the warriors that are coming forth to defend her creations, okay? And that's what that shield really meant. When the shield turned upside down, I mean, it's inverted. So what I'm telling you is that with every planet, there is what we call a positive side, there's a negative side, and then there's balance. Work to uncover the positive side as also being a pole, okay? Because this is why you got to understand why the white robes and all that stuff come out, is because there is a hiding in a tense of that is also polarized. This is a big part of transparency, people, is that you got to realize that the people that are saying that they're good and saying that they're good and they're always staying over here and good, and they haven't even explored and experienced themselves, that's not good, okay? From that word good, we actually get God and we get a whole nother dynamic, but reality is that what we're talking about truly is to achieve balance, because then you get out of this whole what you think is good and then what you think is malevolent, and then you start seeing that these two are both in the same category. But guess what? Malevolence seems to be the one that you see the easiest, meaning you can easily see the malevolence. But it becomes very difficult to see that these so-called acts of good are also polarized because these acts of good and I love it because the lady explained to me, she called it socialism. This is a big thing that people, if you're from whatever kind of lifestyle, but you ain't really educated, you're not going to understand completely what these words mean, but it breaks down to something simple. It's taking from other people in order to give to someone else for whatever the reason is, okay? And what this ultimately breeds, and this is big because this is the Robin Hood character, which is actually a part of your everyone's path. They start feeling like they're this gladiator, and they must destroy every single thing, especially the Illuminati, and then bring the Illuminati's back to everyone, body back to everyone so everyone can cheer, right? So this person actually still remains trapped in this whole dynamic that there must be one that is destroyed so that another one can actually live, right? Because then this kind of perspective is always going to remain relative to your own nucleus and what you're experiencing. It could get as simple as just your child. It could get as simple as your company. It could get as simple as the color preference. You see, your race. It could that's what you're dealing with in this world, this quantum shell of what is summed up as socialism, which is the Robin Hood. Just think of it as this idea that you can go and take from somebody else to give somebody else, and take from the Illuminati and go and give to people. Like, it's still a wrong state of mind to accomplish what it is that needs to be done in this real great work, not the fake great work, which is fake great work is just throwing everyone in the conflict and standing back and seeing what happens. The real great work is getting in there and being the bridge. That's like a mother. A mother is going to raise the child. She's not going to sit back and talk all day about how the child should be raised in logic, right? So there's someone in logic talking about, well, the pamper is going to be there, and then once the pamper, and the child, Dookie's in the pamper, and the child's going to get a rash, and then they're watching this whole process take place, but never lift a finger. That's logic. So understand that there are those who walk the path, and there's those who talk about walking the path. But then when those who really walk the path get a moment to actually say something about it, which is what I've done, I believe, for the last 5 years, it turns into this. And then it also turns into a grand experience for all of us. And so that's why I see this entire transformation of of what we've done as a really good first example or mold in itself for how we can introduce something into society that takes even the most diverse states of consciousness, one who is actually diametrically opposed to the Creator, that means an enemy of God, and not having a problem with it, into the individual that realizes that they are everything, and thus completely destroys the dualistic DNA or the programming altogether, and starts with something that's not as limited as 22 chromosomes or anything that you can actually shape, form, or fashion. That's the transmutation. But there's always a but to this, because there's always a backside. Notice when you're looking in the mirror, you often miss the backside. That's for a reason, because we never see really what's hidden. But the backside to this, or what I call the back room, is there is a show, there is a drama that must act itself out with everyone playing as a role in an orchestra to bring forth a tone and vibration that creates the realization of why we would need something like this and how something like this could even be created for us. See, we create a world that we all go and live in again. And we have the opportunity to create a magnificent world that we go on to next. But if everyone's sitting here lamping in a can't peep game, basically, that the planet is a womb, and that obviously a womb opens at a certain point, and then baby comes out. And then what is on the outside generally was the same thing that your skin was trying to protect you from in the last world that you were in. Okay? And then when you transcend that, right, that you break through that barrier, and then you go into another frequency. And generally, that frequency is somewhat disorientating. So you start off like new again. This is like coming into the world, baby, mama. You just don't know what the hell just happened, because now you're in new geometry. What we're talking about is becoming astrally invested. We're talking about understanding when we pull out of a sphere, exactly what sphere we're going back into. We're talking about standing at the door of reincarnation and becoming professional reincarnators. We're talking about bringing spirit tech, meaning the actual merging between what in the future is real technology, meaning what was assisting things on a quantum level. Was it crystals? Yes, it was. So bringing the real tech that's in nature into the reality in order to give us the energy that is necessary for us to repair our vehicles. But look, such ideas such ideas, they think, well, man, you can't do that, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of thoughts, right? So this is why you want to stop talking about it and just do it. In fact, it's already done. It was piece by piece by piece. And guess what? A lot of the individuals that have been key to that are now arriving now. I have a lot of important people that I'm meeting here within a moment that we're going to talk about big things. But it's not just going to be about the talk. It's going to be about the action, because as you see, secret energy is about at 18 and 19%. What it actually is, again, is it takes you through the courses that are necessary, step by step, for you to be able to access the next level of information. And the reason why this is important is some would say, well, I don't know. I don't know about that. But think about it. Do you give your child a porno? Meaning, that is the gap between much of real spirituality versus where everyone is at. A baby, and just giving a baby something like that, that's just, you see what I mean? So think about it. Why would you give people the highest level of spirituality ever available to man when they're actually in a stage of still realizing who they really are? Think of what they'll really see, right? So this is the integral part of this. This is like, okay, well, when does everyone slow down for a moment and actually figure out what's really going to assist? Me, I'll do it. So what it is that, first of all, our platforms have to be hosted offshore. Like, we can't be hosting and keeping information in places where people that are not even respecting our rights and respecting our liberties have access to that. It just doesn't fly. You see what I mean? Second, it needs to form itself as something that creates a value that is not associated with money. That is the key to open source. Open source is something that you actually, everyone has a vested interest in it. And generally that vested interest is knowledge. And it's important for you to check this out. There's a company that just came out of Israel. It's called SCIO. That's SCIO. Typing it here in the chat box. And what they did is that they created the world's first handheld molecular scanner. And I believe I may have talked about this briefly before, but what that does is it just identifies anything that you put it on. So if I put it on this, it'll say 22% rubber, 51% elastic, whatever. It'll tell me the composite of that. And it will do that with pretty much anything. But the way that it's working is because it just knows it can just read the molecular signature. But it's people's responsibility to tag different things. And because they made this device open source and rather cheap, it's only like $250, the next comparison to a device like that is like $20,000. So all the laboratories are adapting it. All the schools, the high-end schools are adapting it. So this means that you'll have people in laboratories that will be scanning molecular compounds for the first time and being able to give us the genetic makeup of certain things, and then we will have a molecular scanner in our hands to be able to determine what that is. And so they actually coined this sixth sense, because it's every bit of some level of sixth sense. It's still electronic and technical, right? But it's identifying the material of everything that you are dealing with. This means that if you put it in a smoothie, if you put it in your cereal, if you put it in whatever, it's going to tell you what's there. That's going to change the game. But that kind of game-changing idea, this company was making about $40,000 every 3 hours. It finished at $2.7 million. It's one of the highest Kickstarters ever funded. But what was the engine? Open source. Open source also means that I can tell you this. I'm not sitting here like, oh my goodness, I can't tell anybody. I got to get my idea formulated first. I need to patent it. I need to put it in. I need to process. I need to get some word for me. Non-disclosure, non-circumvention. Oh, he's going to steal it from me. Oh, I got to change the name. Who's the owner? What percentage? See? That's the whole problem here. If you never work with that, then we ain't going to get, I think like the Jay Electronica guy said it, regardless who you vote for, if the mind don't grow and the poverty line doesn't go, but the dope keeps coming and the TV keeps flashing images of a sports car, you're down for a Coke war. I mean, exactly, meaning that if you don't actually get right into where this is, the root of where this is all coming from, like relieving people's current stress, what's happening right now, that stress, then all of the other eloquent stuff, the stuff that requires you to have a couple medallions yourself to realize that you want to let all that go and then go to the next level of yourself, meaning a chakra jumper. Someone who actually, even though mastering something, is willing to go in as a child again, but together. Because remember, you don't have to be that lonely child going down that, there it is. You don't have to be that lonely child going down that tube and you don't know where you are, what's going on, what's happening. You don't have to be that. When we go together, these kind of incubations processes stop because this particular template becomes obsolete. The organs, in the state of the organs and their vibratory frequencies in which they're on, don't become the actual same organs that we're using to create our next stage of consciousness. But, because there's always a backside, in a shadow world that is actually the reflection of what you're doing, such things will take place. And that's the big mystery. The big mystery here is that in the shadow world this is the holographic perspective. There's a shadow here, and then there's what we're creating, what we're doing, and then we're sending a shadow from that. That's called a wave. And those waves equal the frequency, and those frequencies, they equal. So what you're really talking about then, not to make it really complex at all, but once you vibrate one of these, it's like a bell, and then all of them start ringing. And when they start ringing, that means the spheres play. When they show up, the celestials wake up. It's like, yo, you're looking at the great guitarist there asleep. You're like, yo, man, Saturn, wake up, man. You're no longer dead and lead. You're wisdom and father. Yo, Venus, straighten your stuff up. Put your clothes back on. Your power, your integrity. You're the womb. You're the creator. Hey, yo, Mercury, come back. We're listening now. You know? It's really deep, man, when you really think about it, because never in life have we had the opportunity to get the whole story. Like everyone that came through, and then in that not prostrated ourselves to it, and then started seeing it as something beside us. We put it back in us where it is. It's like, put these pieces back in. You see? You see what it is? You put the pieces back together. And then you build that ladder. And then that ladder and that bridge, there's no need anymore. You can erase that program. You can put it all there in one symbol. They may even call it the symbol of the cross. It's like, yo, that's when we once crossed each other. And we just fade away as we feel the energetics even from our backs, meaning that we're going into something greater. Like, I don't want humans to feel like they're going into something less, because that's not what's happening. What's happening is, for the first time, we're realizing that, hey, we got something to do here. Hey, there's actually something that I really can do. There's something that to be involved in, and it starts inside of me. It's changing me. It's real. And I can no longer at all participate in false frequencies, even if it just means third grade. But there are others to come, meaning that those who gain the knowledge, they read something at one time. That's what we're all doing. It's like you pick up a couple crumbs. You read that and like, man, this is it. Man, how many times have you said this is it? I got it. If you got somebody you could talk to, like your mom, I really found out. I found out this time, and she's just laughing because you keep finding out. You find out your magnificence. And so that's it, everyone, for today. What will follow is a large amount of connection, a place where people can come and express themselves freely, where no one will be missed, where nothing will be hidden, where all will be made available to those who show that they are ready to reach that. And that judgment in itself will not be something that any of us take a role on, but ourselves, meaning that our achievements will be based on our actions. And then we will no longer live in a world where there are people who demand all of the respect and demand our devotion, but yet have not accomplished the deeds and the activities that are necessary for them to truly guide such a great people into the total realization at all itself. So to you, brothers and sisters, I welcome you to this new stage of our consciousness, a time that is in history that we can visit at any moment. It's a great time, the day after Ascension, if you may, and it's the time that we identified the cube, six-face, and six-face Saturnalian knowledge about time, communication, programming, and all the different things that you need to know in order not to, when you're gliding through the cosmos, to when you're omniscient and collected, no clothes, clear face, that you do not glide towards the box unless you are ready for the great work. Okay, so that's it. Like, there's no more to really add to that. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take questions. I kind of teared up for a little bit, which is okay. There's a heart there. In fact, I've had it's just been just 2 weeks of, I told you I was coming back, and then it was just complete collection, and then I bent my sphere, meaning that what literally happens, and if we got to get a little literal about it, but when you're doing one specific thing, i.e. third grade, what you're doing is you're basically working in this one sphere, and you have to really kind of hold that sphere. You have to hold that frequency. But what happens is that the opposite to that is also accumulating. I think this is dark matter. That's what I was telling you guys about the show. It's like dark matter starts accumulating, gets dangerous. You got to release dark matter sometime and then formulate it and make it into something. This means release your creativity, and this is what children were. You release your creativity, formulate it, make it into something. You get it? So now we have to move into another center, though, because this is where the deeper knowledge comes in as big. Now we produce so much from these lower areas that we have enough children. We don't have enough people that know how to raise children, take care of children, etc. Children being abandoned. So we got enough children. So what about the births from here? Right? What about what comes from here? And this level of your consciousness, which is the innovation, the creations that you make that come into the reality that also do the same thing as what children would do, which is give energy. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. I can say it now. And that's why today's conversation is a really, it's a really touching conversation for me, because we're at the end of it. And I realized that I was actually able to, seal in the state that I'm in, which is experience a lot of energetics, transmit this information to you in this fashion, and not completely stumble upon myself, because that's kind of what's been happening is that, I see it and I say it at the same time, and then the word doesn't match what I'm saying because there's no calibration for it because it's a cube. So then I'm faced with another language. So I can spray from the frontal lobe, which gets everything done, but at that point, that's deprogramming. That's kind of like when you're sitting in front of a person where you have to realize, especially if they don't know what you're talking about, the last thing you want to get to do is start doing to keep talking, so it's better to listen. And in fact, this allows you to open up the receptor because you can simply feel it. It's when you stop talking, like, your talking is going out, and then you stop, but not just stop like neutral, but stop like in reverse. That's why there's power in all of these positions of positive, negative, and neutral, right? So you go like in reverse, and there's like a vacuum that happens within your consciousness because you kind of just start tuning into everything around you, including this person's frequency. And so then as they're talking to you, what then happens is it's not so much as that you are shutting up so that you can't talk. It's actually realizing what you need to say. That's what this whole back reverse negative introspection of the person is. That's what you're doing, because first of all, in consideration of time, you don't actually have all the time to be sitting down with them 3, 4, 5 hours trying to walk them through the great arcana. It's just let them do that on their leisure time. Let them log in the secret energy and sign up for the first course and start walking themselves through that in a way in which they understand it. But as far as what you need to be doing is understanding what is the key. Now remember, every keyhole is different. So as the key maker, you would come in and then you would go into from neutral to backdrop. After your initial introduction of yourself and a little small talk, then the person wants to talk about themselves because their energy is going like this. So it's a no-brainer. They're going to want to talk. So you listen, and then you receive, right? And then what you're doing is it's like you're triangulating them in a sense where you're skip tracing them. This means that you're actually searching for them on the grid of the cubic information. Where they're at. And you and zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. Then, okay, you see them at 7 years old, 8 years old. They're in the room. There's this scary thing in the closet. Then there's only the babysitter. You start seeing that. You start seeing them. But this is not also something that you start saying either. This is another mistake. Some that get that ability are like, I see you in a room with yourself as a child. Now, the person's going to go into denial anyway. You're a bad deprogrammer. The best of us can actually do it without the person even knowing that it's done. So this is the last thing you want to do is try to walk the person directly through what they actually experience in a way that they see it that way. Because what happens is that you can actually take and gather the entire scenario of the situation and then bring the person into a simulation that's relative to the reality that they're living in, that allows them to see that they've approached that same point over and over and over and over and over again. It could have been last week that they approached that same point with that same energy, and that they take it out from there and pop it out from there, that shell, then they can break that shell and choose not to have that shell on them through this experience, like i.e. the monkey on your back in a tent. So this is integral work. And what happens is that it's very difficult to do through any kind of data or electronic device. Like, think about it. Can I sit there and telepathically sense your mind? Through a improper carrier? And if I could, what would I really be getting back? Would I be getting back the truth, or would I be getting back what can be programmed? And the other thing about individuals and this kind of conscious, remember, mediums are like cell phones on the astral plane. Everyone wants them, meaning that mediums have a tendency to keep up a lot of very diverse kind of energetic forms, I'll say, riders a lot. And this is because of that whole interaction between, and like my friend pointed out, still socialism, which is where you even have to sell your ability in a certain sense. Here's $80 for this session, $200 for this session, these kind of things. This kind of like limits a person to their abilities. And we're not saying, again, that this is wrong or right. We're talking about we can do better. We can do better together. Let's go ahead and let's take some questions here. And what I did find out is, and that's one of the major things about this, is that I found out that there was going to need to be a lot of curating time. And that's really what this is also about, is that I can definitely tell you how it's supposed to be. I can definitely show you it in diagrams. I can definitely show you the databases that are supposed to be there. But the final moves to actually get it there and to sustain it and to allow it to be able to help millions of people is something that is, or billions or countless people, that's something that needs to be done. So if I get to that and other people see me doing that, that's going to be a better image, in a sense, of what people can choose to do. So I don't see any questions here, and that's why I kind of keep talking, is because, and someone says, how do I prevent getting stuck in Seven? Okay, remember, if I'm talking about something, let's say for 10 episodes, like basically, which is how to get out of this, right? And then you find yourself with the question of, well, I don't know how to get out. That means that something has occurred that is either sensory overload, meaning that the way that you're actually receiving this information is not necessarily the way that you take in information. And this is okay, meaning that some of this talking and trying to dance around in symbols is very frustrating for people. Imagine you won't be able to communicate like this to everyone. Like you think about just going, let's go to the hood and then let's go in with this. You're going to have to change it up. You could actually have the same message in what you're talking about and take it into another dynamic, which is what I encourage everyone to do, is figure out how to do that better. But realistically, if to take it from this level where it's at of us understanding from metaphysics, basically, and chakras and all this kind of stuff, hidden worlds and unseen things, it takes a certain kind of individual to do that. Now, also, what we're dealing with here then is that some people are visual learners, some people learn by listening, and some people learn by experience. So if you find yourself looking at this data and looking at this information, but yeah, like I still don't get it, what was advised is that first you check and triangulate yourself, your mind, body, and soul. And I never have a problem with explaining it. You triangulate yourself and you actually see what is your weakest point. And have you done the work that is necessary to grow from there? But generally, for most people, maybe 95% of the people, it's physical. It's their physical body. So this is why we talk about going through the cleanses and then walking yourself up the ladder of actually rebuilding the temple. Look what they're showing you here. You have to, if you don't rebuild your temple, they're going to build it for you. They're going to try to build a Solomon's temple right inside of you. So, but this is still temple building. So remember, the whole highest level of knowledge here is how to build your body, a bodybuilder, right? So what happens is that you got to be willing to go introspective on yourself and be like, okay, because the guidelines are there. You start off with the internal cleansing, and then you start climbing the ladder. You get your flora and fauna together. This means you change up your stomach, your probiotics, and your enzymes and all the things to help you digest minerals. Because before you even go into taking vitamins and supplements and superfoods, you can't even feel any of that stuff unless you take the proper enzymes and probiotics that basically eat that stuff for you, and then poop it out into a condition in which you can actually eat it. That's how these organisms really work. So it's about gaining that, what can be simple for a person, but also very complex when they're constantly challenged with fast food or constantly challenged with a reality, because we're really surrounded. People were making note of this even on CNN, that there's just a lot of bad food around now. So when you go around, it's very difficult to get something that's good to eat. So you need to even start ordering your food and bringing in certain levels of stable. But what is this? Dolphin face. Dolphin face is the only one concerned about this. No, meaning that it's basically the person that actually thinks it very important to pay attention to themselves versus Miley Cyrus and World Star Hip Hop and anything besides themselves before they get perfected. Because then once you study things, and especially in the external world, there would need to be some kind of strategy to why you're actually studying it. It's like, why are you even learning this? What are you going to do with it? You would need to ask yourself those kind of questions before you start studying things, not after. You don't build the city and then try to build the road. But that's also what comes with improper training. And so this is where we're starting. We're starting in the ground of this. Like I said, getting the prisoners awake and giving them the opportunity. You awake one prisoner, then you have him in that nucleus awakening others, okay? And then you also have others that become awake in certain kinds of ways that become a bridge to others who are even further from the state of consciousness of the individual who were originally awake. This is very simple. So what we're also talking about is that everyone doesn't have to be blowing chakra wheels and talking about all sorts of big ramifications with the universe and the parallax and all that in order to get some action going on here. That's not what this is about. What this is about is amplification and radiation of who you really are, which is the truth. Okay? So the truth has a seat in that. And then when other people interact with the truth, it gives them the truth. Because after all, what can truth give beside truth?